Hey guys, tonight we slip back into a world you could never imagine living in. You breathe the heavy, wet air of a primeval forest, its canopy stretching so far above that the sky is more of a rumor than a view. The ground is soft underfoot, thick with ferns taller than you are, and dragonflies as wide as your head dart past in sudden streaks of shimmer. Cicada-like insects shriek with a metallic chorus, and from somewhere deeper in the greenery, a call booms like a brass horn, low, vibrating through your chest. You wouldn't last 5 minutes here. The humidity alone would choke you, and the predators, well, let's just say they'd find you before you even realized you were prey. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love for you to comment your location and the local time where you are listening right now, because somewhere, someone might be drifting to sleep under their own stormy sky. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The story begins on an Earth you wouldn't recognize on a map. Continents are broken apart, drifting across oceans like slow-moving rafts, colliding, reshaping, tearing away. The air carries more carbon dioxide than your lungs would tolerate, and temperatures swing higher, jungles spreading where deserts once ruled. This is a world where dinosaurs rose not by chance, but by the long patience of deep time, carving their place as rulers of the land. You march with them now, not as one of them, but as a ghostly observer, sliding between eras, watching the stage being set for both their triumph and their eventual disappearance. The first thing you notice is scale. Everything feels oversized. Conifers spear into the sky, cycads sprawl in fat fronds, and ginkgo trees, ancestors of the ones you might pass on a modern city street, stand older than nations. Trundling between these green walls are reptiles not yet dinosaurs. Early cousins, squat and sprawling. They're the rehearsal before the grand performance. Creatures that would give way to the real giants. You hear the distant drumming of footsteps, slow, thunderous, and then you see them. Dinosaurs are not yet the sleek movie monsters you imagine, but strange blends of familiar and alien. Some have feathers like scruffy cloaks, some bare skin like crocodiles, others bright crests to flash colors in the sun. And here is your first fact for tonight. The earliest true dinosaurs emerged around 230 million years ago during the Triassic period. They were small at first, almost fragile compared to what would come later. But they were fast, upright, and adaptable. That adaptability gave them an edge in a world rocked by extinctions, where other reptiles failed. But here's a quirk. Did you know that many early dinosaurs were no larger than a dog? Forget the towering brontosaurus for a moment. The first of their kind would have slipped past your ankles, darting like lean lizards through undergrowth, hunting insects and tiny prey. You could almost imagine them scurrying around your feet like feathered chickens, except these chickens had sharp teeth and claws. Still, even scholars argue about what made dinosaurs rise above their reptilian competition. Was it their upright stance, giving them more efficient breathing? Was it their ability to regulate body temperature better than others? Or was it simply luck, being in the right place when rivals were swept aside by disasters? No one agrees fully, and so you drift on in that uncertainty, feeling the mist on your skin as if history itself wants to keep its secrets. You wander deeper into this world, where the ground trembles beneath a passing herd of sauropods. Their necks sway like cranes, tails whip behind them with a sound like giant ropes cutting the air. They tear at branches high above you, indifferent to your ghostly presence. A single sauropod could eat more in one day than your entire neighborhood consumes in a week. And yet, here they are, moving in herds across swampy plains, breathing clouds of steam in the morning heat. You pause to watch one linger by a lake, its reflection rippling in the surface, broken by the snap of something beneath. Crocodile ancestors lurk, jaws wide, waiting for young stragglers to wander too close. The balance is always fragile. Giants and predators in a dance of survival. And when night falls, the forest becomes something even stranger. Instead of moonlight, your path is lit by bioluminescent fungi clinging to rotting logs, casting pale glows. Tiny mammals scurry at your feet, barely more than shadows. They are overlooked in this world, tiny survivors biding their time. You don't know it yet, but they are the hidden heirs, waiting patiently for dinosaurs to falter. But for now, the dinosaurs dominate, shaping not just the land, but the very rhythm of life. Their footprints harden into stone that future scientists will puzzle over. Their bones sink into mud, becoming the fossil record that tells their story in fragments. You realize, as you drift closer, that even in their dominance, their fate is already being written. No empire, no matter how vast, lasts forever. And so you stand in this world of giants, hearing their calls echo through humid valleys, smelling the resin of ancient trees, feeling the tremor of footsteps in your bones. You are small, yes, fragile and out of place, but you are witness to something immense. A reign that will last for millions of years before a sudden silence will sweep it all away. The reign of the Mesozoic stretches out before you, like a vast, slow dream. You step forward, drifting not through minutes or hours, but across entire ages, as if your footsteps click along the hands of a clock that measures in millions of years. The air hums with heat, the ground shifts with drifting continents, and life itself rearranges like pieces on a cosmic board. Dinosaurs are no longer just scrappy newcomers. They are the architects of their world, shaping forests, swamps, and skies with their sheer presence. The Triassic period greets you first, a world still recovering from catastrophe. Only a short time earlier, short meaning about 250 million years ago, the Earth had endured the most devastating extinction in its history, the Permian-Triassic extinction. Over 90% of species vanished, a near wipe of the biological slate. You walk through a planet emptied of much of its diversity, a silence still echoing in ecosystems where so much had been erased. And into that silence, dinosaurs step, small but opportunistic. The earliest carnivores, such as Chicxulub, dart through dry riverbeds on long legs, their jaws studded with needle teeth. They remind you of birds more than lizards, their movements quick, their bodies light. Some run in packs, scattering small reptiles and early amphibians. The quirky detail is this: paleontologists have found mass graves of Chicxulub, preserved in tangled heaps, suggesting that floods may have drowned whole groups at once. Stranger still, in the stomach regions of some fossils, scientists think they've spotted the bones of younger individuals, perhaps victims of cannibalism. The debate lingers. Were these really meals, or were the bones just washed into bodies after death? You drift on with that question unresolved. As the Triassic ages on, plants return in force. Conifers rise, cycads spread, ginkgos flourish. The air is rich in carbon dioxide, warmer, thicker, a greenhouse cocoon that stretches forests across the continents. You trail a small group of Plateosaurus, early giants of the herbivore world, long-necked but clumsy compared to what will come later. They crop leaves with spoon-shaped teeth, stomping heavy three-toed prints into the soft mud. In their shadows, you spot tiny mammals skittering, rat-like, sharp-snouted, alert. They cling to the edges of existence, overshadowed but not eliminated. You shift again, stepping into the Jurassic period, around 200 million years ago. and the world blooms larger. Dinosaurs explode into diversity, filling niches with new forms. The sauropods, those long-necked titans, rise to dominance. You stare up at Brachiosaurus, so tall you feel like you're standing beside a living skyscraper. Its nostrils sit high on its head, and it tilts its neck to pluck at treetops 30 feet above. Herds of Diplodocus march nearby, their tails cracking like whips when predators draw too close. The earth trembles under their weight, a rhythm that echoes like thunder before storms. Here, your mainstream fact. Sauropods were the largest animals ever to walk the earth, with some stretching over 100 feet long and weighing more than 70 tons. Nothing today, not even elephants or whales on land, can compare. They were living machines of eating, digesting, and moving, reshaping forests simply by existing. But life here isn't all giant feet and leafy meals. Predators stalk this world too, sleek and sharp. Allosaurus, with its curved claws and serrated teeth, hunts across floodplains. You follow one as it trails a herd, its breath steaming in the cool dawn. Scholars argue whether it hunted alone or in groups, whether those arms so small were truly useless, or whether they dug into prey with deadly efficiency. You watch, unseen, as it lunges, sinking teeth into the flank of a young sauropod. The herd panics, dust and screams rising, and in the chaos, you feel the raw brutality of survival. The quirky detail emerges in your wandering. Scientists discovered that sauropods may have swallowed stones, gastroliths, to help grind food in their enormous stomachs. Imagine rocks tumbling inside, grinding plant fibers to pulp. A primitive blender churning meals. You picture a Diplodocus stooping not just for leaves, but for smooth stones by riverbanks, swallowing them like medicine for its belly. Night in the Jurassic carries new sounds. Instead of silence, the forests resound with chirps, croaks, and the heavy breathing of giants asleep. Insects buzz like tiny violins. A pterosaur flutters overhead, leathery wings glinting in the starlight. You realize that the skies themselves have shifted in power. Reptiles have taken the air, just as they've taken the land. You shift again, further forward, into the Cretaceous, the last act of the Mesozoic theater. The continents have drifted closer to their modern shapes. Seas rise and fall, and flowering plants burst onto the scene. Yes, here's your mainstream fact. Angiosperms, the first true flowering plants, emerge in the Cretaceous. This changes everything. Bees evolve to sip nectar, pollination spreads faster, fruits develop, and diets diversify. Dinosaurs that once munched only on cycads and conifers now have colorful blossoms and fruits in their world. You imagine a hadrosaur chewing petals while pollen dusts its beak. Hadrosaurs, the duck-billed dinosaurs, dominate the herds now. You hear their honking calls echoing like brass instruments across plains. Their crests, hollow and ornate, function as resonating chambers, turning breath into eerie music. Scientists still argue about the exact purpose. Were they calls for mating, alarms for danger, or just social chatter? You pause, hearing the chorus rise and fall, a prehistoric orchestra rehearsing in the twilight. Predators rise too, none more famous than Tyrannosaurus rex. You walk with it one night, its massive head swinging low, its footsteps shaking the ground. Its teeth are banana-sized, serrated like knives, designed not just to cut, but to crush bone. And yet, here's another uncertainty. Was T-Rex a hunter, or mainly a scavenger, or both? Paleontologists argue still, each fossil clue a whisper too faint to settle the debate. You smile, because uncertainty is its own kind of lullaby, leaving the story half open. Quirky detail? Some hadrosaurs, fossils suggest, might have migrated seasonally, herds traveling hundreds of miles like modern caribou. Imagine the sight. Thousands of dinosaurs marching in unison across a plain, their young tucked in the middle, predators trailing in patient silence. You stand at the edge, watching dust plumes rise, a river of life flowing through a vanished landscape. The Cretaceous also gives you armored tanks like Ankylosaurus, plates and clubs bristling against attack. You watch one swing its tail with bone-shattering force at a predator, sparks of dust rising at the impact. Triceratops, too, stamps nearby, its 3 horns glinting in the morning light, frill flared in defiance. Entire ecosystems hum with diversity, from tiny feathered raptors darting in forests to massive giants shaking the plains. And yet, drifting at the edges of your vision is a shadow. The Mesozoic reign, for all its grandeur, is not forever. The Earth itself is restless. Continents drifting, volcanoes belching fire, climates shifting. As you walk among these rulers, hearing their calls, seeing their herds stretch to horizons, you know, though they do not, that their world is fragile. A single event, a moment of catastrophe, can tilt the balance. But for now, the Mesozoic breathes in full splendor. You lie back in tall ferns, listening to the distant rumble of sauropods, the honks of hadrosaurs, the roar, or perhaps only the rumble, of predators in the dark. Overhead, the stars are ancient, watching silently. And beneath them, dinosaurs live out their reign in cycles of life, death, and survival, unaware that history's clock ticks toward an ending. Life beneath the canopy folds around you like a cathedral of green. You step under giant cycads and towering conifers, branches knitting overhead to block out most of the sun. Shafts of light break through here and there, spotlighting patches of ferns and moss. The air is thick, humid, sweet with resin, laced with the musky odor of creatures that passed by not long before. You crouch low and listen. The forest is never silent. It breathes with the rustle of leaves, the distant splash of water, and the rhythmic croak of insects, some so large they sound like distant machinery. Dinosaurs live not just as towering figures in open plains, but here, in the intimacy of daily survival. You wander alongside them, unseen, through the routines of a world that feels both alien and oddly familiar. A flock of small feathered raptors darts past, chasing insects through the undergrowth. Their feathers are not majestic wings, but tufts and plumes, ragged cloaks of color that help them blend into dappled light. One pauses, its head tilting, eyes bright with calculation. You see intelligence there, a spark of problem solving that feels different from brute instinct. Then it vanishes again, swallowed by the green. The mainstream fact settles here. Many dinosaurs weren't just scaly giants, but feathered creatures. Some brightly colored, others patterned for camouflage. Feathers weren't always for flight. They kept bodies warm, displayed to rivals, and perhaps even made sounds in courtship. This knowledge reshaped how we imagine them. Less like cold-blooded monsters, more like vivid, dynamic beings, alive with texture and nuance. And then, the quirky detail. Fossilized dinosaur nests reveal incredible parenting behaviors. Some species, like Maiasaura, the good mother lizard, built communal nesting grounds, laying eggs in carefully arranged clutches. Parents likely guarded these nests, bringing food to hatchlings and keeping them warm with their own bodies. You kneel by one such nest, a bowl in the earth lined with rotting vegetation. Tiny beaked mouths poke from shells, squeaking faintly, while a mother stands nearby, her bulk casting protective shade. It's tender, almost domestic, and for a moment, you forget you're in a world defined by survival. Still, danger is always near. A rustle in the canopy above reveals a pterosaur perched, eyes fixed on the vulnerable. Its wings stretch in the filtered light, translucent membranes glowing amber as it shifts. Will it strike? Perhaps not tonight. Scholarly uncertainty lingers. Did pterosaurs prey on young dinosaurs? Or did they focus more on fish and carrion? Evidence is thin, just enough to raise questions, but never enough to settle them. You drift with that ambiguity, the story unresolved, like a lullaby ending mid-verse. You continue deeper into the canopy. A group of ornithopods trundle by, their bodies squat, their heads duck-billed, their calls honking like old horns. They lower their muzzles to nip ferns, chewing with broad, grinding teeth. You watch their tails sway as they move in quiet rhythm, every twitch a defense against insects that swarm in clouds. Life here is messy, unglamorous, filled with the constant need to eat, groom, move, and rest. Yet each detail is a thread in the tapestry of survival. You pause near a stream, where water trickles over smooth stones. A young ceratopsian dips its beak, drinking nervously, its frill not yet grown. The surface ripples, and your heart stirs. You know predators lurk here. A shadow slides beneath the water. Crocodilian ancestors, their eyes just breaking the surface. They snap once, twice, but the juvenile jerks away, fleeing into the brush. A reminder. Death is always a moment away, and vigilance is the cost of life. Night beneath the canopy is even stranger. The forest glows faintly with bioluminescent fungi curling around rotting logs. Insects sing in overlapping rhythms, each species with its own percussive beat. You lie back on damp soil, staring at the silhouettes of branches above, and you realize this is the daily reality of dinosaurs. Not always epic battles, not always cataclysmic events, but cycles of waking, feeding, caring, fleeing, and resting. Their lives, like yours, were built of small rituals, not just dramatic ends. A quirky whisper of science drifts in again. Coprolites, fossilized dung, tell us just as much about daily life as bones do. Paleontologists break them open to discover plant fibers, bone fragments, even insect shells. The quiet truth is that much of dinosaur history is written in what they left behind, not in their towering skeletons. You imagine kneeling in this forest, holding a still warm pile of dung, knowing it holds the keys to understanding who ate what, who lived where, and how ecosystems balanced. Strange, unglamorous, but deeply human in its curiosity. And scholars still debate whether some dinosaurs slept like birds, heads tucked beneath their arms, or sprawled like lizards in the heat. Fossils freeze individuals mid-rest, but interpretations differ. You picture a herd settling down, young nestled in the middle, adults forming a ring around them. Soft snores rise, tails twitch, feathers ruffle in dreams. Did they dream as birds do? Their eyes flickering beneath lids? You don't know, and perhaps you never will. But the thought eases into you like a cradle song. You walk on, hearing the canopy sigh above, the creatures shuffle below. Life in the Mesozoic was not just about extinction waiting in the wings. It was about living each day, navigating hunger, parenting, avoiding predators, finding water, resting under stars. The grandeur of extinction stories sometimes hides this truth, that dinosaurs, for millions of years, simply lived. You close your eyes and let their world blur into yours. The taste of resin on your tongue, the honk of a hadrosaur fading into the distance, the gentle hiss of insects in the warm dark. For a moment, you are not just an observer, but part of the rhythm, folded into the canopy's hush, breathing with the creatures of a world long gone. The shifting earth stretches under your feet like a restless sleeper, never still, always adjusting its weight. You place one step down and feel a tremor ripple through the soil, not from a passing dinosaur this time, but from the planet itself. The continents are on the move, slow to your eyes, but relentless across eons. You drift into a perspective where mountains rise, seas swallow plains, and rivers carve valleys, all in the blink of a geological eye. Dinosaurs may rule the surface, but the Earth rules the stage, shaping where they thrive and where they fail. At first glance, the continents look familiar, but only if you squint. In the early Mesozoic, they are welded together into one massive supercontinent, Pangaea. You stand at its center, where deserts sprawl hotter and drier than the Sahara you know. Winds whip sand across dunes that stretch without end. Dinosaurs here are small, lean, adapted to harshness. Rain is rare, oases precious. You walk with them through parched valleys, your throat aching in sympathy, knowing water is a prize more valuable than prey. But step forward a few million years, and the map begins to crack. Fault lines widen, seas trickle in, and Pangaea splinters like old wood. Laurasia drifts north, slides south, oceans opening between them. It's a slow motion unzipping, yet to you, standing ghost-like on the fault lines, it's thunderous. Volcanic ridges glow red, plumes of steam hiss skyward. The air smells of sulfur, metallic and biting. You realize dinosaurs don't live in a static Eden. They live on shifting rafts of land, carried into new climates, pushed into new struggles. Here's your mainstream fact. Continental drift rearranged ecosystems throughout the Mesozoic. As land masses pulled apart, dinosaurs diversified, isolated from one another, evolving into strange new forms. Species that once roamed together split along ocean barriers, turning cousins into strangers. This is why you see ceratopsians flourish in North America, but not in the southern continents. Geography is destiny, even for giants. And here's your quirky detail. In what is now Antarctica, dinosaurs once thrived. Fossils of hadrosaurs and ankylosaurs have been found in rocks that were near the South Pole during the Cretaceous. Imagine it. Herds grazing under months of twilight, breathing air cold enough to sting your lungs, feathered bodies huddled for warmth. They walked where today only penguins and seals wander. You shiver in the thought, the canopy of stars glittering brighter in that polar night. Still, uncertainty lingers like fog. Scientists argue how exactly climate shifts influence dinosaur evolution. Did rising seas fragment populations, sparking bursts of innovation? Or did steady greenhouse conditions make the world broadly hospitable, keeping dinosaurs globally abundant? The record is fractured, the fossils scattered, and you feel that tug of not knowing. It's a lull, a soft gap in the story that leaves your thoughts drifting like continents themselves. The Earth does not only move sideways, it heaves upward too. You wander through newborn mountains, jagged ridges of basalt and granite jutting skyward. Rain carves them quickly, torrents turning to rivers, rivers to deltas. You watch as lush plains rise where seas once stretched, and seas flood valleys that once rang with footsteps. Dinosaurs adapt again and again, sauropods following rivers that change course, predators adjusting their hunts to new herds, plants spreading seeds into soil still warm from tectonic birth. You pause on a shoreline where waves lap quietly. Fish dart in shallow pools, their fins glinting silver. Then, with a shudder, the sea rises higher, creeping inland. A new seaway swells across North America, the Western Interior Seaway, cutting the continent into two halves. You wander its shores, watching mosasaurs churn the water. Wings of pterosaurs darken the skies. The land behind you hums with hadrosaurs and ceratopsians, their calls mixing with the cries of seabirds. It's a world split by salt water, where ecosystems knit together in strange, hybrid ways. And here you find another quirky whisper. Some ammonites, those coiled-shelled relatives of squid, show patterns on their shells that scientists think may have been camouflage or even display. Imagine them gleaming beneath shallow waves, their patterns flashing as predators swoop above. Entire ecosystems shimmer with color and movement, invisible to your ghostly touch, but vivid in your mind's eye. Night falls again, and you lie back on stone, still warm from volcanic heat. Stars arc across the sky, slow but certain, while the land beneath you creeps onward. You imagine the continents inching silently, carrying whole herds into isolation, forcing predators to chase different prey, driving plants to colonize strange new soils. Dinosaurs rise and fall with the Earth's heartbeat, their fates tied not just to claws and teeth, but to the shifting plates beneath their feet. You feel it in your bones, the reminder that extinction is never a single blow, but a weaving of forces. Geography, climate, chance. Dinosaurs live their days unaware, grazing, nesting, hunting, singing, all while the ground below sets the timer. You close your eyes, the rumble of tectonic plates lulling you into drowsy awe, and the shifting earth cradles you in its slow, eternal motion. The breath of fire reaches you before you even see it. The air grows thick with a metallic tang, ash falls in whispers onto leaves, and a distant rumble shakes the ground as if the earth is clearing its throat. You walk toward the horizon, and there it is. A wall of red-orange light, fountains of molten rock spurting skyward, rivers of lava crawling over the land like glowing serpents. Volcanoes. They do not just shape mountains, they shape entire ages. Tonight, you stand near one of the greatest volcanic events ever recorded in Earth's history. The Deccan Traps. You don't see them as small eruptions, as we know them today, but as endless outpourings of molten rock, layer after layer, building vast plateaus of basalt. For nearly 1 million years, in pulses stretching across time, this region of what is now India spewed enough lava to bury half a continent, and along with lava came gases, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, poured into the atmosphere, changing the very climate dinosaurs depended on. Your mainstream fact settles in. The Deccan Traps were one of the largest volcanic features ever formed, covering an area larger than modern France and Germany combined. Imagine entire countries erased beneath black stone, forests smothered, rivers rerouted. And yet, the most dangerous part wasn't the lava itself. It was the sky. Sulfur created acid rain, scarring plants and soils, while carbon dioxide warmed the globe, tipping delicate balances. Dinosaurs grazing peacefully could never suspect that the true predator came not from claws, but from invisible gases drifting overhead. Here's your quirky detail. Bubbles trapped in ancient lava flows still contain tiny pockets of that prehistoric air. Scientists can analyze them, literally breathing a sample of Earth's atmosphere from tens of millions of years ago. Picture it. Fossilized breath, preserved inside rock, whispering secrets of the ancient climate. You kneel, press your fingers against a cooled basalt wall, and imagine the hiss of gases still echoing faintly, a memory of fire. But uncertainty coils here too. Scholars still argue. Were the Deccan Traps the main killer of dinosaurs, or just a background drumbeat before the asteroid struck? Some propose that volcanic gases had already begun cooling or heating the Earth, stressing ecosystems long before impact. Others think the asteroid's shockwave may have triggered the most violent phase of volcanism, as if Earth itself responded to the blow with convulsions. Which came first? Which mattered more? You drift through these questions like smoke, never quite grasping the answer. You step closer to the fiery rivers. The heat sears, though your ghostly form doesn't blister. Trees crack and topple, their trunks glowing red before collapsing into molten streams. Herds of dinosaurs move along the edges, restless, confused. Ankylosaurs, their armored backs glowing faintly with reflected light, lumber to safety, if such a thing exists. A flock of pterosaurs takes flight, their wings catching sparks as they pass too near. Life flees, adapts, finds pockets of refuge. But the land is changing beneath them faster than instinct can adjust. At night, the world glows even brighter. Lava fountains arc against the stars, painting the sky with crimson. Ash falls like dark snow, coating leaves, clogging streams. You lie back on a basalt slab, the ground humming with subterranean energy. It feels as if the earth itself is alive, breathing fire, coughing smoke. Dinosaurs sleep uneasily nearby, some restless, some unaware of the larger story being written over their heads. And still, amid destruction, life persists. Plants creep into cooling lava fields, moss and ferns sprouting where nothing should grow. Insects swarm, feeding on what remains. Small mammals burrow deeper, finding warmth in cracks and tunnels. Even here, survival finds a way. You feel the stubborn heartbeat of Earth. Not just the violence, but the renewal. Cycles folding over themselves endlessly. Quirky whispers follow you again. Some paleontologists believe massive volcanic eruptions may have dimmed the sunlight, producing volcanic winters before returning with sudden greenhouse warming. Imagine the whiplash. Dinosaurs adapting to cool years, only to face sudden heat waves. Crops of cycads failing, forests withering, rivers drying, herds migrating desperate miles only to collapse in exhaustion. And yet, some species thrived through it, proving resilience where others faltered. You wander along the edge of a lava plain now hardened into black stone, its surface cracked like scales. In shallow pools, the first signs of recovery already glitter. Algae, insect larvae, small fish wriggling in runoff. Time erases scars more slowly than you walk, but inevitably. The Deccan Traps do not end the world, but they tilt it, nudge it toward fragility. Scholarly uncertainty closes the circle again. Some argue dinosaurs were already in decline by this stage, thinned by volcanic disruptions and shifting climates. Others insist they were still strong, herds stretching across continents, predators fierce and plentiful, until the asteroid delivered the final blow. The evidence is scattered, fragmented, like puzzle pieces chewed by time. You cannot know for sure, and that not knowing, that space between theories, rocks you gently as you listen to the low rumble beneath your feet. The fire breathes on, and you breathe with it. Your lungs fill with phantom ash, your ears ring with the growl of magma. You close your eyes and imagine sleeping through centuries of eruptions, waking to find the land reshaped. The dinosaurs older, wearier, their world a little more fragile than before. The breath of fire never truly ends. It lingers in the stones, in the cracks beneath our modern feet, in the stories told by bubbles trapped in lava. And tonight, it lingers in your dreams, soft and glowing, like embers waiting to fade. Clues in the rocks call to you now, as though the earth itself has left a breadcrumb trail across millions of years, daring you to follow. You kneel on a dry plain where time has stripped away the soft earth, leaving bare stone, cracked and layered like pages of a book. Each layer whispers of an age, each stratum a memory pressed down under unimaginable weight. Tonight, you become not just a ghostly wanderer, but also an archaeologist of silence, tracing the lines of history with your fingertips. The most famous clue, the one every schoolchild hears at least once, lies in a thin band of clay found around the world. The Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary, the K-Pig line. You squat low to study it, a seam no thicker than a coin. yet it marks one of Earth's sharpest divisions. Above it, a world without non-avian dinosaurs. Below it, a world teeming with them. The mainstream fact is clear. This boundary contains unusually high amounts of iridium, a rare metal on Earth, but common in asteroids. That single chemical signature was one of the first smoking guns that pointed scientists toward an impact event. You brush the line gently, and though you cannot feel its texture, you feel the weight of its meaning. Millions of lives snuffed in an instant, written forever in dust. But rocks tell more than chemistry. Fossils reveal violence in subtle ways. You find shocked quartz, tiny grains with fracture patterns only created by immense, sudden pressure, the kind delivered by a massive impact. You turn one grain in your palm, imagining the force of mountains slamming into the earth at unimaginable speed. Beside it lie spherules, glassy beads formed when rock was vaporized and then rained down again, cooling in midair. These tiny globes are fragments of a global firestorm, evidence preserved in quiet stone. The quirky detail here is almost playful. Scientists discovered that some fish fossils from just after the impact contain tiny glass spherules lodged in their gills. Imagine that. Creatures suffocating not from water or predators, but from inhaling beads of molten rock falling from the sky. It is grotesque, yes, but also strangely intimate. A snapshot of catastrophe caught mid-breath. You see them in your mind. Fish thrashing in shallow water as fire literally rains from above. Their deaths etched into the fossil record. Yet uncertainty lingers, as always. Some scholars debate whether the iridium came solely from the asteroid impact, or if volcanic activity, like the Deccan Traps, contributed too. Did two killers overlap, combining their blows into one extinction? Or was one just a grim drumbeat before the final crescendo? The debate drifts like mist over your shoulders, never fully settled, never fully gone. You wander into a canyon where walls of sediment rise high, stacked like cakes. Fossilized shells poke from the layers, spirals of ammonites frozen in rock. These creatures once ruled the seas, their shells beautiful as jewelry, their bodies soft and vulnerable. At the boundary line, they vanish. Extinction is not abstract here. It is written in absence. One moment, oceans teem with life. The next, silence. You run your ghostly fingers over the curve of a shell, its ridges delicate, its spiral unfinished. The mainstream fact returns. Nearly 75% of Earth's species disappeared at the KPG boundary. It wasn't just dinosaurs. Ammonites, flying reptiles, giant marine reptiles like mosasaurs, and countless plants all vanished. The biosphere collapsed like a fragile web torn at too many points. And yet, amid loss, survivors clung to existence. Small mammals, birds, crocodiles, turtles, and certain plants endured. In the fossil record, survival is just as meaningful as death. You kneel near a fossil bed, where bones lie tangled like driftwood. A hadrosaur's skeleton arches upward, ribs fanned like broken timbers. Its skull is crushed, its teeth still sharp enough to catch your eye. Around it, plant impressions press into stone, leaves and seeds flattened yet immortal. You imagine the moment. Mud covering the body, water pressing sediment down, time sealing it into rock. Millions of years later, it rises again, a silent witness to catastrophe. Quirky detail again. In some deposits, paleontologists have found what appear to be fern spikes. After the extinction, fossil records show an unusual abundance of fern spores, far more than usual. Ferns, quick to colonize bare, devastated landscapes, became the first wave of regrowth after forests burned. Imagine hillsides blackened, soil scorched, and then like green lace. Ferns unfurling across the silence. You picture it vividly. A planet bandaged in soft fronds, nature's first healing gesture. But uncertainty softens the edges once more. Scientists puzzle over the timing. Did the extinction happen in days, weeks, years, or stretch across tens of thousands of years? Was it an instant apocalypse or a long, unspooling decline punctuated by catastrophe? The fossil record cannot yet tell us with absolute clarity. You sit in that ambiguity, lulled by the idea that not all endings are clean, that some dissolve slowly like smoke. The rocks whisper to you as you move. You hear not words, but impressions. The scrape of a claw, the crunch of vegetation, the crack of fire, the silence after. Each fossil, each mineral, each thin seam of clay is part of a vast archive that doesn't lie, but also doesn't explain itself fully. It leaves room for mystery, for wondering. You walk away knowing that the clues are both gifts and riddles, fragments of a puzzle too large for any one lifetime to solve. As night falls in your wandering, you rest against a wall of sediment glowing pale in the starlight. The fossils keep their watch, eternal and mute. You close your eyes and imagine the earth itself as a storyteller, slow and patient, writing with pressure and time instead of ink. Its stories are imperfect, incomplete, yet enough to keep you listening, enough to keep you dreaming. The day the sky fell begins in silence. You stand in a world at peace, or at least in the ordinary rhythms of the late Cretaceous. Hadrosaurs graze by riverbanks, their crests honking in a chorus of communication. Triceratops plod slowly, their horns glinting beneath the sun. Tiny mammals scurry through leaf litter, unnoticed by giants towering above them. Even Tyrannosaurus, restless and immense, breathes heavily in the shade, waiting for dusk to hunt. Nothing in this moment suggests that the world is about to change forever. Then the horizon brightens. A streak of light cuts across the blue, so fast it blurs, so brilliant it hurts your eyes, even through ghostly lids. In that instant, the ordinary ends. An asteroid about 6 miles wide enters Earth's atmosphere at more than 40,000 miles per hour. Faster than a bullet, brighter than 1,000 suns, it races toward what will one day be the Yucatan Peninsula. The mainstream fact is staggering. The asteroid released an energy equivalent to billions of Hiroshima bombs. In less than a second, forests, rivers, and creatures beneath it ceased to exist. Vaporized in a blast so hot, it turned rock into plasma. You feel the air itself ignite, the ground buckle, the sky erupt. Sound is no longer sound, but a wall of pressure. A shockwave so powerful it flattens everything for hundreds of miles. You drift close, though no living being could survive here. The asteroid strikes shallow sea, punching through water and stone, carving out a crater over 100 miles wide, the Chicxulub crater. Waves as tall as skyscrapers surge outward, tsunamis racing in all directions. Rock and seawater are hurled skyward, vaporized into clouds that pierce the atmosphere and rain back down as molten glass. You raise your hand, and fiery droplets pass through your palm, sizzling as they fall. The quirky detail surfaces in your wandering. Scientists believe that within minutes, forests thousands of miles away caught fire. Not from lava, not from impact debris, but from the radiant heat of ejecta re-entering the atmosphere. The whole sky glowed red, hot enough to ignite leaves, dry wood, even the feathers of creatures cowering below. Imagine standing in North America, Asia, or Africa, and seeing the heavens themselves catch fire. No predator could hunt, no prey could hide. Every living thing felt the furnace above, and yet uncertainty lingers. Scholars still argue about the scale of this fiery rain. Did it set the entire planet ablaze, or only certain regions? Were oceans broad enough to blunt the firestorms in some places, offering pockets of survival? The truth is hidden in scattered ash layers and charcoal deposits, in fragments too few to resolve completely. You rest in that doubt, swaying like grass between theories. The shock waves ripple through land and water alike. Entire herds collapse under the blast, lungs crushed, bones shattered. In coastal shallows, mosasaurs thrash as waves slam them onto rocks. In inland rivers, fish leap wildly, suffocating as oxygen vanishes from water churned with silt. You drift among them, unable to touch, unable to intervene, watching life snuff out faster than a breath. The sound is indescribable. It is not thunder or roar, but something more primal, as if the planet itself groans. Dust rises in choking clouds. The sun dims behind a curtain of debris. Dinosaurs still living in the aftermath stumble through ashfall, honking, roaring, screeching in confusion. Predator and prey alike are blinded by grit, their calls blending into a single symphony of panic. Mainstream science adds more detail. The impact not only vaporized rock, but also released massive amounts of sulfur from limestone deposits. This sulfur mixed with water vapor to form aerosols that spread through the atmosphere, reflecting sunlight away and cooling the planet dramatically. You feel the chill in the air, even as fires burn around you. An impossible paradox of searing heat and oncoming cold. Quirky, haunting evidence remains. In a North Dakota fossil site called Tanis, scientists uncovered fish piled chaotically, their bodies mingled with glass spherules from the impact. Some appear to have died within an hour of the strike, killed by surging waves in what was once an inland river. Imagine that. A record of destruction captured like a snapshot, so fresh it feels like you're standing on the bank, watching them thrash. Still, uncertainty whispers again. Did every dinosaur die instantly in the first hours? Or did some linger for years, struggling against failing ecosystems, dwindling food, collapsing climates? The fossil record offers glimpses of both immediate devastation and slower decline, and no consensus bridges the gap. You let that uncertainty cradle you, like a lullaby with an unfinished verse. The sky darkens fully now. Ash and dust blot out the sun. Stars vanish. The world grows dim, not in the gentle hush of twilight, but in a suffocating shroud. You taste grit on your tongue, feel ash gather in your hair. The air thickens, harder to breathe, and though you are only an observer, you cough reflexively. Around you, silence deepens. The honks of hadrosaurs fade, the roars of predators fall quiet. The only sound is the soft patter of falling ash, like snow. But this snow does not melt. It buries. It buries forests, rivers, nests, eggs. It buries the world of dinosaurs, one gray flake at a time. And you, lying back in this ashen night, realize that this was not just an ending. It was a reset, a breaking of one age to make space for another. The dinosaurs could not have known. They grazed, hunted, nested, and dreamed under a sky that seemed eternal. Until one day it wasn't. You close your eyes as the last glow of molten glass fades, and the day the sky fell becomes the night everything changed. A world on fire spreads before you. Not a metaphorical fire, not the kind of heat you feel on a summer's day, but a planet-wide blaze lit by the heavens themselves. You stand among trees whose crowns ignite before the flames even reach them, leaves curling to ash in an instant. The air itself shimmers with radiant heat, searing lungs, baking skin. If you were alive here, flesh and bone would not survive this furnace. Yet, as a drifting witness, you walk through inferno and smoke, carried on winds thick with the stench of burning life. The first hours after the impact are chaos embodied. The asteroid strike launched trillions of tons of molten debris, high into the atmosphere. And when that debris rained back down, the friction of re-entry turned the sky into a broiler. Imagine the heavens glowing red, brighter than sunset, hot enough that distant forests spontaneously burst into flame. This is no local disaster. It is a global event, a firestorm stretching across continents. The mainstream fact sets the stage. Geologists believe that as much as 70% of the world's forests burned in the wake of the Chicxulub impact. Ash layers found worldwide tell the tale. Soot, charcoal, and burned plant remains pressed into rocks like dark fingerprints. It wasn't just a single blaze. It was fire on an unimaginable scale, sweeping across ecosystems, leaving only scorched earth behind. You walk through that silence after the roar. When fire settles into steady consumption, dinosaurs stagger through smoke. A triceratops, its frill blackened, pushes forward blindly, calling for companions who do not answer. Small mammals dart into burrows, their fur singed, but their bodies hidden beneath soil. Birds, some of the few destined to survive, take frantic flight through smoky skies, their wings beating against air heavy with soot. The survivors of this moment are not the largest or strongest, but the ones who can hide, adapt, or flee. A quirky detail clings to this devastation. Scientists studying fossil charcoal have found evidence that fires burned so hot they may have sterilized soil down to its roots. Entire ecosystems had to start over from scratch. And yet, just as after modern wildfires, green would eventually return. Ferns, the opportunists of the plant world, sprouted first, carpeting the blackened landscapes in fronds. Paleontologists call this the fern spike. It's oddly comforting. Even when the world burns, some small green shoots insist on pushing through. Still, uncertainty smolders. Did the fires burn everywhere at once, or in waves as debris fell unevenly across the globe? Some models suggest entire continents ignited nearly simultaneously, while others propose patchwork devastation. Regions shielded by oceans or prevailing winds might have suffered less. The fossil record hints, but doesn't settle the question. You let that ambiguity drift over you like smoke. A haze through which you can almost see but never quite know. You wander toward the coasts, where the fires meet water. Here, another catastrophe rises. The asteroid strike churned up tsunamis taller than skyscrapers. Waves crashed across shorelines, sweeping trees, dinosaurs, and entire forests back into the sea. Imagine being a hadrosaur grazing by a delta, watching the horizon bulge upward before water roars over you. In some fossil beds, tangled mats of trees, bones, and debris testify to these watery graves. Even far inland, the earth was restless. Shock waves traveled through the crust, triggering earthquakes stronger than anything humans have ever measured. Rivers changed course overnight. Lakes sloshed out of their beds. Volcanic vents erupted, stirred awake by the impact's energy. You place a hand on the trembling ground, and though you cannot fall, you feel the deep unease, as if the earth itself groans in pain. The mainstream fact continues. The Chicxulub impact hurled so much material into the atmosphere that a global haze formed, filled with dust, soot, and sulfur aerosols. Sunlight dimmed drastically, temperatures plummeted, photosynthesis stalled. This was the doorway to the impact winter. But before that chill settled, the fire had its reign. You step back into the forests, watching smaller creatures pick through smoldering ruins. Some dinosaurs try to nest, though their eggs will not hatch in these poisoned lands. Some mammals sniff through charred bark, scavenging insects and seeds. You realize survival is not heroic here. It is small, desperate, stubborn. Life clings to crevices, to burrows, to the last scraps of unburned wood. Quirky evidence again. Microfossils, tiny plankton preserved in ancient oceans, show an immediate collapse in diversity right after the impact. They died off in such numbers that entire layers of limestone, usually built from their shells, vanish for years afterward. It's strange to think. While forests burned on land, the oceans were suffocating, their invisible architects of ecosystems blinking out. A catastrophe on two fronts: fire above, collapse below, and uncertainty remains. Did some dinosaurs watch skies blaze for days before darkness fell? Did survivors wander across plains lit by glowing horizons, only to starve as the chill arrived? Fossils can't record emotions, can't tell us whether they understood their ending. You imagine it anyway. A hadrosaur honking into empty air, unanswered. A predator stumbling through ash, too weak to hunt. A mother guarding a nest already doomed. The night after the fires is not like any night you've known. The stars are gone, hidden behind ash. The moon is invisible. The world is cloaked in a red glow from embers still smoldering across continents. You walk under this false twilight. The air thick, the silence broken only by crackling wood and the occasional cry of something still alive. It feels eternal this night, as if the sun will never rise again. But rise it does, or tries to. A dim disk struggles through soot, casting not warmth, but a sickly light. The fires recede, but the world is already changed. Forests are gone, skies are dark, food is scarce. Those who survived the firestorms face a new trial, the long, cold shadow of winter. For now, though, you lie back on ash, your body cushioned by the remains of leaves and bark. Sparks float upward, glowing briefly before winking out. The air tastes bitter, but you breathe it anyway, because it carries the truth. Endings come not with a single blow, but in waves. Fire, then cold, then silence. You close your eyes as embers crackle, knowing this is only the middle of the story, not its end. The long winter settles over you like a heavy blanket of stone. Gone is the inferno, gone the searing brightness of a sky turned into fire. In its place comes a dim, unending twilight. The sun rises, yes, but only as a pale disk, veiled behind curtains of dust, soot, and sulfur that the asteroid strike and global fires have sent spiraling into the stratosphere. The Earth itself feels hushed, as though someone has turned down the volume of life. The mainstream fact whispers in. Scientists estimate that sunlight may have been reduced by more than 80% in the months and years after the impact. Photosynthesis, the ancient engine that fuels nearly all food chains, stalled. Without light, plants withered, forests collapsed, plankton in the oceans dwindled. It was not just a single catastrophe, but a chain reaction rippling through every layer of existence. You walk through a forest that no longer feels like a forest. Blackened trunks stand like skeletal fingers against a gray sky. Ferns, those first green pioneers after fire, sprout timidly at the base of scorched trees. But beyond them, little else grows. The air smells stale, cool, faintly metallic. You run your fingers along a dead branch, and it crumbles into ash. This is a silence that even birds cannot break. Not yet. Not fully. A quirky detail emerges. Paleontologists have studied fossil pollen grains across the extinction boundary. And in many places, flowering plants vanish almost completely. In their place, ferns dominate. The fern spike, they call it. A biological fingerprint of devastation. When hardy spores colonized wastelands that delicate blossoms could not endure. Imagine whole continents cloaked not in colorful flowers, but in low carpets of green lace. A world simplified, pared down to its most resilient forms. but uncertainty lingers thick as the dust. How long did this darkness last? Some scientists suggest years. Others argue for decades. Was it enough to plunge Earth into a near ice age? Or did the greenhouse gases from volcanism temper the chill? No one can say for sure. The fossil record leaves gaps, like torn pages from a book. You drift in those gaps, imagining days that never brightened, weeks where cold gnawed at the bones of giants, years where hunger thinned herds into whispers. You cross into the plains, where once herds of hadrosaurs roamed in endless procession. Now the land lies empty, only scattered carcasses marking the passage of time. A triceratops skeleton leans half-buried, its frill tilted like a shield abandoned in battle. You step closer and see bones gnawed not by predators, but by weather, crumbling as if the earth itself consumes its own children. The mainstream fact sharpens again. In the oceans, the collapse of photosynthesis starved plankton, which in turn starved fish, which in turn starved marine reptiles. Fossil records show a sharp decline in diversity, whole lineages disappearing within a blink of geologic time. The mosasaurs and plesiosaurs, once rulers of the seas, are gone. Their reign ended not by battle, but by famine. Quirky detail. Some fish species managed to survive, clinging to life by feeding not on plankton, but on detritus, decaying matter drifting through the water. In that grim buffet of death, they found sustenance enough to persist. You imagine them, tiny survivors swimming among corpses, thriving on what others could not eat. It is humbling, this reminder that resilience often hides in unexpected places. And still, uncertainty. Were the dinosaurs already weakened before this winter? Some argue their diversity had begun to decline in the final million years of the Cretaceous, perhaps from volcanic disruptions or shifting climates. Others insist they were flourishing, herds abundant, predators fierce, until the impact tipped the balance. You stand between these theories, unable to decide. The truth buried under too much ash. You move north, where cold bites harder. Ice crystals form on the edges of rivers, not yet glaciers, but whispers of deeper chill. Dinosaurs trudge through snow-dusted plains, their movement sluggish. Feathers help some smaller species, insulating them against the cold. But the giants, those who require endless greenery to sustain their bulk, cannot find enough to eat. You watch a young sauropod stumble, its ribs visible, its steps faltering. It collapses into the snow, its breath steaming faintly before fading altogether. The world feels emptying, drained. You lie back and watch the dim sky, the faint outline of a sun that offers little warmth. The silence is not peaceful, but heavy, like a pause that stretches too long. And yet, even here, life refuses to vanish completely. Quirky evidence sings again. Seeds, tucked underground, endured. Some plants survived by retreating into their own resilience, waiting for sunlight to return. Crocodiles, with their slow metabolisms and ability to hibernate, endured as well. Turtles, buried in mud, slept through devastation. These small, steady lives remind you that extinction is never universal, that even in the worst winters, some embers refuse to die. Scholarly debate circles one last time. Was it the cold that killed the dinosaurs, the starvation, the poisoned skies? Or was it all together? A symphony of collapse, each note compounding the others until the song of the dinosaurs ended. You let the question hang, unanswered, a soft riddle to lull your mind. The long winter stretches on. You curl against the earth, your ghostly form cocooned in silence. You feel the hush of snow, the whisper of ferns, the faint scrape of creatures still moving somewhere in the dark. The giants are nearly gone, but their echoes linger, You close your eyes, breathing with the rhythm of a world learning to live smaller, quieter, colder. The last giants stand before you now, shadows of their former glory. Once, the land trembled with the weight of sauropods marching in herds. The forests echoed with the booming calls of hadrosaurs, and the plains shimmered with the horns and frills of ceratopsians stretching to the horizon. But in this world after fire and ash, their ranks are thin. You walk among them not as a visitor to a kingdom, but as a witness to its collapse. A herd of triceratops drifts across a barren plain. Their frills, once bold shields of color and display, now look dull under the gray sky. They shuffle slowly, ribs pressing against hide, their calls weak. A calf lingers at the edge, unsteady, nudging at frozen ground for plants that no longer grow. The mother stays close, her horns poised in tired defense, though no predator approaches. Hunger, not tooth or claw, is the real danger now. The mainstream fact is clear and cruel. Large herbivores require enormous amounts of food, and in a world where photosynthesis has stalled, they starve quickly. Without plants, there are no herds. Without herds, predators have nothing left to hunt. The food web collapses top to bottom, a structure built over millions of years undone in decades or less. You wander further, spotting a Tyrannosaurus prowling in the distance. Its movements are slower than you expect, its body gaunt. This apex predator, once the terror of its world, is reduced to scavenging. It noses at a carcass, crunches a bone, then lifts its head and bellows, a sound less of dominance than of defiance. Scholars still argue whether T-Rex was primarily hunter or scavenger. But here, in these final days, the distinction no longer matters. It is simply a survivor, doing whatever it can to last one more night. A quirky detail reveals itself in fossils. Some of the very last dinosaurs show evidence of stress in their bones, lines marking malnutrition or illness. Growth slowed, paused, and then sometimes resumed if conditions improved briefly. These lines of arrested growth are like tree rings, silent records of hardship written into skeletons. You imagine a hadrosaur, its body struggling to grow in fits and starts, carrying the story of famine in its very frame. Still, uncertainty hovers. Did some species linger longer than others, outlasting the majority by thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of years? Some evidence suggests that small groups of dinosaurs might have survived in isolated regions, refuges where conditions were slightly better. Or perhaps those fossils are misdated, misleading hints of survival where none truly existed. No one knows for sure. You rest in that ambiguity, as though extinction itself has ragged edges rather than clean lines. You follow a river that winds weakly through the wasteland. Its banks are strewn with skeletons, some half-buried, some still intact. An ankylosaur lies on its side, armor plates dulled, tail club motionless. Once, this tank of the Mesozoic could shatter bones with a single swing, but no defense can stop hunger. You kneel beside it, tracing the cracked plates, marveling at the engineering of evolution. Strength perfected, yet powerless against silence and ash. Night falls, and the air grows colder still. The giants huddle together, conserving heat, but fewer voices echo in the dark. The chorus that once defined the Mesozoic dwindles to scattered notes. You remember the honking herds, the deep-throated calls of sauropods, the chatter of small raptors beneath the canopy. Now the soundscape is thin, punctuated only by the occasional cry, a ghost of what once was. The mainstream fact presses in. By the end of this extinction event, all non-avian dinosaurs were gone. Every triceratops, every tyrannosaurus, every ankylosaurus vanished. Only their smaller, feathered relatives, the ancestors of modern birds, remained. You let that fact settle like snow on your shoulders. It is not just the loss of species, it is the end of an age. And yet, the quirky image persists. In some places, the last dinosaurs may have died quietly, not in dramatic clashes or fiery cataclysms, but simply lying down, too weak to rise again. Extinction is often less cinematic than we imagine. You picture the final moments of a ceratopsian herd. Mothers circling calves, no predators to fight, only hunger and cold to endure. Their bones sink into mud, their echoes into memory. Still, uncertainty circles like a shadow. Why did some creatures survive while giants fell? Crocodiles endured, turtles endured, small mammals endured. Was it their ability to burrow, to slow metabolism, to eat varied diets? Or was it simply luck, a matter of being in the right place at the right time? Scientists debate, but the truth remains elusive. You cradle that mystery gently, letting it rock you like a lullaby of not knowing. You lie back on a ridge overlooking the plain, watching the last giants move faintly below. Their silhouettes pass in the dim light, outlines of a world fading. The stars above shine faintly through thinning ash, indifferent to the drama beneath them. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you imagine you can hear those final calls blending into silence. The long goodbye of the dinosaurs. A song that ends not with a roar, but with a hush. The survivor's tale begins quietly, almost too quietly for you to notice at first. After the roars fade, after the herds vanish, after the forests fall still, there remain small movements at the edges of silence. A scuffle in the underbrush, a ripple in a muddy pond, the faint stirrings of creatures who endured when the giants could not. If the age of dinosaurs ends in thunder, the age of survival begins in whispers. You crouch low beside a burrow, its mouth dark and damp. A mammal emerges, no larger than a rat, fur matted with ash. It sniffs the air, cautious, then darts out to seize a beetle crawling across a dead log. For this creature, life has always been lived in shadows, beneath the feet of giants. And it is that very smallness, that humility of existence, that saves it now. While dinosaurs starved in the open, mammals huddled underground, storing seeds, eating insects, sipping water where they could. The mainstream fact is plain. Mammals survived because of their adaptability. Omnivorous diets, burrowing habits, and small body size gave them resilience against famine and cold. Nearby, in a shallow pool, a turtle stirs. Its shell is coated with soot, its eyes dull but alive. It has been buried in mud for months, slowing its heart, conserving what little energy it can. Now it rises, blinking at a dim sun. Turtles, like crocodiles, endure because they can wait. They can slow time in their bodies, outlasting disasters that giants cannot. You run your hand along its shell, though it passes through, and marvel at the quiet persistence written there. And crocodiles, they too linger. You find one half submerged in a river, its nostrils barely above the surface. Its stillness is not weakness, but patience. Crocodiles do not need constant meals. They can fast for months. They are ambush predators, content to wait in muddy silence until opportunity swims close. When food webs collapse, patience is as powerful as claws. The quirky detail. Fossil evidence suggests crocodiles barely changed in form for over 200 million years. They watched the rise of dinosaurs, watched their extinction, and continue to watch us today. Ancient eyes peering out of modern swamps. Still, uncertainty weaves its threads. Did survival hinge purely on biology, or did chance play a greater role? Were the ancestors of today's birds spared because their habitats escaped the worst fires? or because their beaks allowed them to eat seeds when leaves were gone. Scholars still argue, piecing together fragments, knowing that luck and adaptation are often indistinguishable in deep time. You tilt your head upward, hearing wings. Through the haze, small feathered creatures flit from branch to branch. They do not look like the great pterosaurs that once ruled the skies, nor the massive dinosaurs whose roars shook the ground. These are smaller, lighter, quicker. They are birds, the living descendants of feathered dinosaurs. While their cousins fell silent, these winged heirs endured, carrying forward a spark of the Mesozoic into the present. The mainstream fact hums here. Modern birds are dinosaurs, not just distantly related, but true descendants. Every sparrow, every pigeon, every eagle is a living continuation of the age of giants. When you hear them sing in the morning, you're hearing the last echoes of an ancient world. You walk through a devastated forest, where new green shoots begin to creep among blackened logs. Ferns first, then small shrubs. Insects crawl thick across the ash, their numbers swelling as predators diminish. Mammals feast on them. Birds pluck them from bark. Reptiles snap at them from below. Life reorganizes quickly, not in grandeur, but in pragmatism. The quirky evidence again. Some tiny mammals survived by eating fungi, which thrived on decaying matter in the darkness. Imagine it. Entire lineages depending not on sunlight, but on mushrooms glowing faintly in the gloom. You pause at a riverbank, watching fish dart in shallow water. Not all perished when plankton collapsed. Some species scraped by, adapting to new diets, scavenging whatever drifted down. Overhead, the sky is still gray, but the air feels a little less heavy, as though time itself is beginning to lift the weight. Yet uncertainty gnaws. Was survival predictable? If you rewound time, would mammals and birds always triumph? Or could some twist of chance have left crocodiles and turtles alone, the only heirs of a silenced world? The fossil record gives no alternate realities to test, only the single thread of history we follow. You linger in that thought, letting it rock you gently, a cradle of what-ifs. Night comes, and the survivors settle. Mammals curl in burrows, birds tuck heads beneath wings, crocodiles sink deeper into mud. The silence is different now, not empty, but pregnant with possibility. These small, unassuming creatures do not know it, but they are the seed of what comes next. The age of giants is over. The age of resilience has begun. You lie back on cool earth, feeling the slow return of breath to the planet. It is not a triumphant rebirth, not yet. It is cautious, fragile, stitched together by stubborn lives in forgotten corners. But it is enough. Survival does not need to be glorious. It only needs to be. The mystery of gradual decline hovers like mist over the landscape of extinction. You have walked through fire and shadow, through the sudden violence of an asteroid strike and the long chill that followed. But beneath those apocalyptic moments lies another question that hums quietly. Were the dinosaurs already fading before the sky fell? Or were they still thriving, their extinction a sudden, cruel interruption? You drift backward slightly in time, to the last million years of the Cretaceous. The plains stretch before you, dotted with forests and rivers, and you see herds of hadrosaurs still moving in their thousands. Their honks fill the air, deep and resonant, echoing across valleys. Triceratops graze alongside them, their horns glinting in the sun, frills painted in bright displays of color for dominance and courtship. Tyrannosaurus prowls at the edges, powerful and confident, every bit the apex predator of its age. To your eyes, this does not look like a fading kingdom. It looks like a world in full bloom. The mainstream fact offers clarity and doubt all at once. Fossil records show that dinosaurs were diverse and abundant up until the very end of the Cretaceous. Entire ecosystems thrived across North America, Asia, and South America. The bones speak of vibrant, functioning communities. And yet, some studies point to declines in certain groups, sauropods thinning in numbers, some specialized predators disappearing. It is as though the orchestra was still playing, but a few instruments had already dropped out before the final crash of the cymbals. You walk along a riverbed where fresh tracks stamp the mud. Small feathered raptors dart through undergrowth, their eyes bright, their bodies alert. Above them, a Quetzalcoatlus pterosaur soars, wings casting shadows that ripple over the water. It lands near a lake, towering like a giraffe, its long beak snapping at fish. Scholars debate whether such giants could even fly efficiently, or if they stalked prey like storks on land. You watch its awkward yet elegant movements, marveling at a sky still alive with variety. A quirky detail pulls you closer. In Alaska, fossils suggest herds of dinosaurs lived near the poles, enduring months of darkness each year. These polar dinosaurs were adapted to cold, perhaps with insulating feathers, perhaps migrating long distances. Some scientists even speculate they could see in low light, thriving where others might have struggled. Imagine a herd of hadrosaurs plodding through snowy forests, their breath steaming, their bodies moving steadily despite the chill. It is a strange, beautiful image. Dinosaurs under the aurora, far from the tropics where we usually picture them. Still, uncertainty presses in. Were these polar dinosaurs thriving examples of adaptability, or signs of a desperate attempt to find refuge in marginal environments? Were ecosystems robust or fragile, already leaning on the edge of collapse? The fossil record whispers, but does not shout. Different sites tell different stories, and paleontologists argue as passionately as priests over sacred texts. You wander next into a nesting ground. Maiasaura once again guards her brood, carefully arranging eggs in shallow pits lined with vegetation. The hatchlings squeak and chirp, their beaks snapping at morsels of food brought by attentive parents. This is not the image of a dying lineage. It is a promise of tomorrow. If not for the asteroid, would they have continued for millions more years? Perhaps. Perhaps not. The mainstream fact strikes again. Extinction events often do not require species to be weak. Catastrophes can erase the thriving as easily as the struggling. Dinosaurs may not have been doomed at all. They may simply have been unlucky, standing in the wrong chapter of Earth's story when the page turned. And yet, quirky evidence suggests stress lines. In some regions, diversity in plant-eating dinosaurs seems to have narrowed before the impact. Fewer species meant less resilience against environmental change. If one plant disappeared, entire herds could struggle. Ecosystems may have become finely tuned but fragile, like a tightrope stretched too thin. You picture it now, a world vibrant but precarious, as though one strong wind could topple the whole. You step into a volcanic plain, remembering the Deccan Traps. Ash drifts in the air, not from sudden impact, but from slow, grinding eruptions that last thousands of years. Could these eruptions have already begun to thin the ranks of dinosaurs, poisoning skies, shifting climates? Some scientists say yes, that the asteroid was the final blow to an already ailing kingdom. Others reject it, pointing to abundant fossils that suggest health until the very end. The truth hides between those perspectives, elusive, quiet. Night falls, and you watch the stars through haze. Dinosaurs still call in the distance, though the chorus is softer than in earlier ages. You wonder, are you hearing decline, or simply the ebb and flow of natural cycles? Every ecosystem rises and falls, every lineage waxes and wanes. Perhaps this was no different until fate decided otherwise. The quirky detail hums one more time. Some dinosaurs may have developed behaviors remarkably similar to modern birds. Brooding eggs with body heat, communicating in complex calls, even engaging in cooperative nesting. If true, then they were far from primitive. They were on the cusp of something new, something enduring. In a way, they had already given birth to their successors. Still, uncertainty is the soft pillow under your head. Were dinosaurs fading, or were they cheated of futures they deserved? No one knows, and perhaps no one ever will. You breathe in that ambiguity like mist, letting it settle over you as you lie among fossils, their bones cradling you in silence. The mystery of gradual decline does not end with answers. It ends with questions, looping endlessly like echoes in a canyon. Did they falter? Did they thrive? The Earth remembers, but only in fragments. And so you close your eyes, content to rest not in certainty but in wonder, lulled to sleep by the quiet riddles of deep time. The birth of birds unfolds before you like a slow metamorphosis, so gradual that if you blink across centuries, you almost miss it. Dinosaurs do not vanish entirely. They soften, shrink, sprout feathers, and take to the skies. You walk through forests of the late Jurassic, when the first whispers of this transformation began. And you realize that extinction is never absolute. It is also rebirth. Above you, branches sway with life. At first, you think they're filled with small raptors, slender, long-tailed, claws gripping bark. But then one leaps, feathers flashing, wings catching the air. It does not soar like an eagle, but it glides, awkward, uncertain, a test flight written in bones and feathers. This is Archaeopteryx, the famous first bird. The mainstream fact hums here. Archaeopteryx fossils, found in the limestone quarries of Germany, reveal creatures with both dinosaur and bird traits. Teeth in their beaks, claws on their wings, long reptilian tails, yet with feathers suited for flight. They straddle two worlds, living proof that birds are dinosaurs, not their distant cousins, but their living heirs. You follow Archaeopteryx through the canopy. Its wings beat clumsily, but they work. Feathers rustle with every flap, not the decorative plumes of earlier species, but aerodynamic veins, each barb interlocking like a zipper. The forest echoes with its sharp calls, high-pitched, bird-like, startlingly familiar. You smile. It feels as though the world you know today is being written here, feather by feather. A quirky detail brightens the scene. Some feathered dinosaurs may have been dazzlingly colorful. Fossilized pigments called melanosomes suggest shades of iridescent black, rusty red, even shimmering blues. Imagine flocks of small raptors gleaming like hummingbirds or magpies, flashing colors through Mesozoic sunlight. You pause as one darts past, a tiny creature with feathers shining copper and green, a spark of brilliance in a dim forest. And yet, uncertainty drifts like a shadow. Did feathers first evolve for flight, or for warmth, or for display? The fossil record gives hints, but no definitive answer. Perhaps they began as insulation for small dinosaurs, keeping heat in during cold nights. Perhaps bright plumes helped attract mates, long before wings carried them skyward. Or perhaps flight itself was the unintended gift of adaptations meant for something else. The truth is tangled, a puzzle without its final piece. You step into the Cretaceous, when bird-like dinosaurs diversify wildly. Some skim rivers with long beaks, fishing like herons. Others flutter in forests, hopping branch to branch. A few even lose the power of flight, returning to Earth as heavy runners. Diversity blooms not just in size, but in lifestyles, each experiment a test of survival. You realize that even as giants still thunder across plains, The small feathered heirs are quietly preparing to inherit the future. The mainstream fact deepens. More than 10,000 species of birds exist today, making them one of the most diverse groups of vertebrates on Earth. Every robin, crow, penguin, and ostrich is a living continuation of this lineage, carrying dinosaur DNA in their cells. Their wings echoes of claws, their songs echoes of roars. When you hear birds at dawn, you are listening to the last dinosaurs still speaking. You follow a flock across a devastated post-impact landscape. Ash still coats the ground, trees are blackened, rivers sluggish with debris. Larger dinosaurs stumble and fall, but the feathered ones flit from tree to tree, pecking seeds, snapping insects, scavenging what remains. They are small, but they are resilient. Seeds endure where leaves cannot. Insects rebound faster than herds. Birds adapt. Quirky detail. Some early birds, like Ichthyornis, still had teeth. Imagine a gull-like creature, soaring gracefully, then opening its beak to reveal a mouth lined with sharp points. You chuckle softly. It's a reminder that evolution is messy, transitions gradual, and that today's clean divisions between bird and dinosaur would have made no sense to creatures living then. Uncertainty wraps around again. Why did some bird lineages survive while others perished? Many early birds died out in the extinction event, their diversity clipped. Only a few branches endured, the ancestors of modern birds. Did their smaller size give them an edge? Did their diets, more flexible and seed-based, save them? Or was it simply luck, being in the right refuges at the right time? The answers dissolve into ash and silence, leaving only speculation. Night settles, and you sit beneath a burned tree listening. The great calls of hadrosaurs are gone, the roars of predators silenced. But above you, faint chirps echo. Tiny birds, tucked into crevices, whisper into the dark. Their songs are not yet the melodies of modern thrushes or warblers, but they are enough. A promise that sound will return to silence, that life will persist. The mainstream fact softens once more. Birds are the only dinosaurs to survive the mass extinction 66 million years ago. They carry in their bones, their lungs, their feathers, the architecture of their ancestors. When you feed pigeons in a city square or watch a hawk circle overhead, you are looking at creatures that outlived Tyrannosaurus and Triceratops. The dinosaurs never truly left. They only changed their shape. You close your eyes, imagining a continuum. From roaring giants to chirping sparrows, from feathered hunters to hummingbirds sipping nectar. The line is unbroken. Extinction and survival. Death and rebirth. They are not opposites, but partners in time's dance. The birth of birds is not just a survival story. It is a reminder that endings are also beginnings. Dinosaurs still live among us, not in skeletal museums, but in living flocks, soaring above highways, nesting in gutters, singing outside windows at dawn. You drift to sleep with that thought, soothed by the idea that even in loss, the world carries memory forward in feather and song. Extinction's ripple spreads outward, long after the last roar fades. You sit at the edge of a blackened forest, where new green fronds push up through ash, and you realize the story is no longer just about dinosaurs. It is about what comes after. When one kingdom falls, another rises, and in the hush of the Paleogene dawn, you begin to see the shape of a new world. The mainstream fact settles first. Mass extinctions, as devastating as they are, always open space for survivors to flourish. After the Cretaceous-Paleogene event, nearly 3/4 of species vanished, but the quarter that remained spread into abandoned niches. Ecosystems reshape themselves, not in days or years, but across thousands, then millions of patient seasons. What feels like silence in the short term is, in deep time, the clearing of a stage. You step into an early Paleogene plain, where ferns and shrubs dominate, carpeting land once filled with towering cycads and conifers. The air is quieter. The giants are gone. No herds thunder across horizons. Instead, you see mammals emerging cautiously from burrows, sniffing the open air, ears twitching, noses quivering. Small creatures scuttle, but they are larger now than their ancestors who hid beneath dinosaurs. Rats the size of cats, opossum-like creatures stretching their range, shrew-like insectivores darting among roots. The ripple is already at work, pushing them outward into spaces once too dangerous to claim. A quirky detail emerges. Within a few million years of the extinction, some mammals ballooned dramatically in size. Fossils show herbivores as large as pigs, predators the size of wolves, walking the very same lands where T-Rex once ruled. It is as if life, released from the shadow of giants, suddenly inhaled deeply, filling itself with possibility. You imagine these creatures blinking in surprise at their own growth, awkward but determined, testing what it means to be large. Still, uncertainty lingers. Was this expansion inevitable once dinosaurs fell? Or did it depend on fragile chains of survival? If even a few more plant species had failed, if birds had not endured to spread seeds, if climates had swung harsher, perhaps mammals would not have seized the moment. Evolution is not destiny. It is chance and adaptation interwoven. You let that thought rock you gently, the hum of what-ifs drifting like background music. You wander toward the seas. Where once mosasaurs and plesiosaurs prowled, the water now churns with smaller survivors. Sharks, who endured extinction after extinction, glide unbothered, their teeth unchanged, their supremacy intact. Tiny fish dart among reefs, rebuilt by corals that slowly return. At the surface, birds dive, wings folding, beaks snapping prey. Life does not pause, it reorganizes. The mainstream fact deepens. It took millions of years for biodiversity to recover fully, but when it did, it exploded into forms never before seen. Mammals diversified into bats, whales, primates, ungulates. Birds spread into every corner of the sky. The absence of dinosaurs did not create emptiness. It created opportunity. Quirky evidence hums from the ground. In some Paleogene deposits, scientists have found enormous bird fossils like Gastornis, a flightless predator as tall as a man, its beak massive, capable of cracking bone. Imagine standing on a plain where birds, once small and fragile, loom as new giants. For a time, they were the rulers, until mammals grew large enough to compete. The world, in flux, experimented with its heirs, yet uncertainty, as always, remains. How exactly did ecosystems knit themselves back together? Did recovery ripple evenly across continents, or did some regions lag behind? Fossil beds are uneven, telling us only fragments. In some places, forests returned quickly. In others, grasslands spread before trees reclaimed space. You drift through these fragments, piecing together mosaics that never quite form a full picture. You follow a herd of early ungulates, hoofed mammals, trotting across an open plain. They are awkward, somewhere between deer and pigs, but their presence signals a future. These will become horses, antelope, camels, bison. You watch them nibble at low shrubs, tails swishing, and you hear in their hoofbeats the first rhythms of the mammalian age. Nearby, a group of primates clings to trees. Small, lemur-like, with wide eyes suited for dim forests, they leap from branch to branch, testing fruits and seeds. You linger on them, knowing they are your distant kin. From their cautious steps will come the line that leads to apes, and eventually to you. The ripple of extinction touches not just ecosystems, but the arc of human existence itself. Without the asteroid, without the long winter, mammals might never have risen. Dinosaurs might still rule, and you would not be here to wonder. The quirky thought lingers. Some scientists speculate that if dinosaurs had not gone extinct, intelligent species might have evolved among them. Picture a feathered raptor, upright, tool-using, clever. Perhaps they would have built cities beneath cycads, written histories in feathered glyphs. The world could have belonged to them, not you. It is an unsettling, dreamy possibility, the kind of speculation that drifts into sleep. But instead, the ripple moved differently. The giants fell, the small endured, and mammals stretched into the open spaces. Predators grew sharper, herbivores grew stronger, birds spread farther, plants diversified. Extinction was not an ending, but a turning of the wheel. You lie back on a hillside overlooking this reborn world. The air smells fresher now, green rather than ashen. Clouds drift lazily across a sky no longer clogged with soot. The ground hums with insects, the trees sway with new growth, the rivers run clearer. It feels like a deep exhale after a held breath, the earth relaxing into its next chapter. And still, uncertainty soothes you. Could another catastrophe have come? Another asteroid? Another eruption? Of course, the story is never finished. Every rise is temporary, every kingdom fragile. But tonight, as you listen to early birds calling and mammals scurrying in the brush, you let yourself rest in the knowledge that life endures, reshapes, and persists. Extinction's ripple is vast, but it carries not only loss, it carries possibility. You close your eyes to its rhythm, feeling yourself rocked on the waves of time, lulled by the steady truth that endings are always beginnings in disguise. Echoes of the past hum all around you now, not in the roar of giants or the hiss of ash, but in the quieter rhythms of survival and memory. You have walked through fire, through silence, through the rise and fall of kingdoms, and now you arrive in the present, where the story of dinosaurs still lingers, sometimes in stone, sometimes in wings, sometimes in the imagination of humankind. Extinction is not the end of their tale. It is a resonance that continues to shape every step you take. You stand in a modern forest, the air alive with birdsong. A robin tilts its head, hops across a branch, and peers at you with quick, intelligent eyes. A sparrow flutters nearby, wings beating in delicate rhythm. A hawk circles above, its shadow gliding over the ground. Each of them, in their bones and lungs and feathers, carries the architecture of dinosaurs. The mainstream fact hums here. Birds are the living descendants of theropod dinosaurs. Every coo, every chirp, every flight across the morning sky is a fragment of the Mesozoic echoing into today. But the echoes are not just alive. They are fossilized, pressed into the earth itself. You wander into a museum in your mind, where skeletons tower over you. A mounted Tyrannosaurus, jaws gaping, greets you at the entrance. Children gape in awe. Parents whisper facts. Scholars scribble notes. The bones speak louder than any textbook, their sheer presence a reminder of what once was. Fossils are the voices of stone, and humans have become their interpreters. Quirky details hide in these fossils. The first discovery of dinosaur remains mistaken for dragon bones in ancient China, ground into powders for medicine. The Victorian debates where scientists puzzled over giant femurs too large to belong to any known animal. The way early reconstructions imagined dinosaurs as sluggish, tail-dragging monsters instead of dynamic creatures. Even the name dinosaur itself, coined in the 19th century, means terrible lizard, a misnomer born of early wonder. You smile at these quirks because they show how echoes change over time, distorted yet persistent. Still, uncertainty remains even now. Scientists debate whether some dinosaur groups were warm-blooded or cold-blooded, whether their colors blazed bright or stayed muted, whether their sounds resembled roars, chirps, or low rumbles. Each new fossil, each new analysis, shifts the picture slightly. You realize that part of the echo's charm is its incompleteness, the way it invites imagination to fill in the gaps. You drift into deserts where paleontologists kneel in the dust, brushing gently at bones half buried in sandstone. They record, measure, debate. You crouch beside them, watching as a jawbone is lifted carefully into light, held like a sacred relic. It is not just bone, it is story, it is memory, it is echo. Each fossil pulled from Earth is a whisper brought back to life, a reminder that the past is never fully gone. The mainstream fact widens the lens. Dinosaurs ruled the Earth for more than 160 million years, far longer than humans have existed. Our entire history, cities, civilizations, empires, fits into a sliver compared to their reign. You let that scale wash over you, a tide so vast it humbles your sense of importance. We are newcomers walking across the graves of giants, and yet quirky details tie you closer. You sip a cup of coffee. Plants that flowered only in the late Cretaceous made such drinks possible. You watch a crow solve a puzzle, its cleverness inherited from dinosaur brains that once balanced agility with cunning. You touch a pigeon feather on the sidewalk, an object that could have graced a raptor's tail 70 million years ago. Dinosaurs are not just echoes in stone. They live in your breakfast, your city, your sky. But uncertainty, always the lullaby, lingers at the edge. Why did fate allow birds to survive when so many others fell? Why did mammals rise and not some other lineage? Was it inevitability or was it luck? The story resists a final answer. And perhaps that resistance is its final gift, leaving room for wonder, for imagination, for humility. You lie back in a grassy field. Stars spread above you. The Milky Way shines, the same galaxy under which dinosaurs once looked up, though they never named it. The air is cooler now, softer, filled with crickets, with owl calls, with the rustle of wind in trees. The echoes around you are gentler than roars, but they are real. You realize you are part of this story too, not because you walk among dinosaurs, but because their extinction cleared the path for your existence. Every breath you take is part of the ripple that began when the sky fell. The mainstream fact hums one last time. Extinction is both loss and renewal, destruction and creation. The death of dinosaurs made space for mammals, for primates, for humans. Without their fall, you would not be here. It is a truth as sobering as it is miraculous. And the quirky whisper. In a way, dinosaurs never left. They live as sparrows at your window, chickens in fields, penguins in icy seas. They perch on telephone wires, they soar over mountains, they peck at crumbs on sidewalks. The world is still filled with dinosaurs, just smaller, feathered, lighter. The past echoes not as silence, but as song. You close your eyes, feeling the echoes vibrate through time. You hear the faint stomp of sauropod feet, the honk of hadrosaurs, the rush of wings, the laughter of children in a museum, the song of a bird at dawn. The story is not finished. It never will be. Wind down, 300 words. And now, as our journey through fire and shadow, through loss and survival, comes to a close, let the pace slow. Let the edges of history blur into softness. The roars of giants fade, the crack of impact quiets. The ash settles gently like a blanket of snow. What remains is not fear or violence, but the steady rhythm of time, the assurance that life endures in many forms, that silence is never permanent. Picture yourself lying in a vast meadow at twilight. The stars glimmer faintly overhead. The air is cool, the grass soft beneath your back. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the faint call of a bird, the living descendant of creatures that once shook the earth. Its song is simple, sweet, fragile, yet it carries millions of years of history in every note. You breathe in deeply. The air tastes clean, unburdened by ash or fire. You exhale slowly, letting go of tension, of questions, of weight. Imagine the world cycling forward, seasons passing, forests growing, rivers winding. Imagine extinction not as an end, but as a door, and survival as the step through. The dinosaurs are gone, but not truly. They live in memory, in stone, in feathers, in the echoes of your own imagination. And tonight, they live in your dreams. Let your eyelids grow heavy. Let your thoughts drift, soft as ash on quiet air. You are safe here, wrapped in time's embrace, carried by the lull of history. Sleep now and let the echoes guide you into silence.